Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and today's episode is being produced for GoodCrowd.info. And our guest today is a remarkable young father by the name of Julian Maha, who has created a nonprofit called KultureCity to help his son and others like him that are afflicted with autism. Julian, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin.
Well, I wonder, Julian, if you just take us back in time to your experience with your son's diagnosis. What was that like? Tell us the story of how that came about and how you felt.
So it was about 4 years ago. September 25th was the date. And, we had kind of had some issues with Abram meeting his milestone. So Abram was my son. He was 4 years old at that time. And he had talked right up to about 15, 16 months. And then it slowly started to go away. And we had taken him for some evaluations in psychologists in Birmingham, Alabama, where we live. And they could not come up with a diagnosis with him because he did not meet the classical symptoms or presentation of autism. So finally, in September 4 years ago, we took him to Vanderbilt. And we were kind of shuttered into this small little room. And the doctor walks in. He takes about 5 minutes and I'm outside, and he basically says, hey, your son has what we call classical autism. He probably is never ever going to talk. He's probably never going to say I love you. And looking at him, his behavior is going to get worse. And in about 2 years, you're probably going to put him in an institution. So keep in mind, this is a 4-year-old kid.
Oh my gosh, heartbreaking. What a heartbreaking message.
So, and he's, our first child. And, at that it was just a really crushing moment. It was kind of this week of mourning, so to speak, when we kind of mourn, because, when it's your firstborn, or any child for that matter, you have all these hopes and aspirations, these future goals built up, for your child. And when someone tells you that, that all comes crashing down and you're kind of left with what happened. But then after that, we kind of realized that, this really is kind of a blessing to us, that God gave us Abram for a reason. And the child in front of us is still the same child. Someone just put a diagnosis on him, but his future goals and his future limits or whatever is what, we help him, but it's going to be what he makes of it, not what the world says it's going to be. And that was that realization that, this is actually an amazing thing, that for someone like Abram, because the bar has been set so low, the sky's the limit, because everything you get with him is a bonus.
Yeah. Now, how's he doing? How does his performance, his activity, his education, his comportment, his behavior, how does that compare today with what you were told 4 years ago?
Oh, it's like, night and day. Abram is what's considered nonverbal. And when you talk about nonverbal autism, doesn't mean that they cannot talk. What it means is that they can't have a back and forth conversation with you, but they can tell you your wants and needs. So Abram, has been able to say I love you to us. But he shows it in just a look and a lot of different ways. And then on top of that, we've really taught him to type. And what we've realized is that you can have a conversation with him, by him typing. And that's the amazing thing. We live in such a great world right now that if Abram can communicate with me with a Twitter feed, I'm happy.
Yeah. And that's an interesting dynamic to communicate with your own son, maybe sitting right in the same room with you. And the most effective way to do that is to text or to tweet. And a fascinating dynamic, isn't it?
Exactly, it is. And the thing that, we've really had to kind of convince the community to is that children with autism, they have either normal IQs or higher IQs than a lot of us. And I think the key is to convince people to understand that speech is not the only mode to communicate. There's so many ways of communication. We just have to be sensitive to that. And, whenever he does, something amazing, or when we show the teachers that he can actually type and communicate, they're always blown away. Because, they feel as though, because he can't talk, he can't do this and that. And they're starting to realize that he absorbs anything like, your average kid.
So you created KultureCity. It's a nonprofit, and the idea is to help people with autism. Tell us what KultureCity is doing.
So, if we, in a nutshell, we do 3 main categories. We help, we create, and we inspire. In terms of our help, we have about 6 different projects that really have had a huge impact moving forward, to the tune of about 14,000 people helped in the last 18 months. So we have a very extensive toy program, and that's just to kind of help these kids understand, when we ship toys to children with special needs, that they're not alone in this, and that someone out there is actually, understanding not only what they're going through, but cares for them. We have a tablet program that helps, link tablets to families that can't afford them, so that you can help them, give them a mode of communication. We started the very first special needs orphanage in Jinja, Uganda. And we also have a very extensive scholarship program just to help with, fees and things like that. In terms of the create component, that's one that we are really excited about. And that's where we kind of act as a business incubator for business ideas that not only can create jobs for individuals with disabilities, but also give them the best and most conducive work environment. And then the final thing is the We Inspire quotient, where we have basically helped a lot of community organizations, a lot of areas of attraction like local zoos. We're also working with the Atlanta Hawks of the NBA to make them into the world's kind of sensory-friendly locations. And we've also worked with companies to figure out how they can market their products to people with disabilities and their families, because you're looking at about 25% of the US population.
Yeah, this really is a wide and a growing issue. It affects a lot of people, a lot of families. I want to focus for a minute on the create. Tell us a little bit about some of the business ideas you're incubating right now.
So right now we have a couple. We have our business ideas are basically the United States, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Uganda. So in the US, we have 3 things going right now that just got funded. The first is a cold press juicery that has hired 14 individuals with disabilities in Birmingham, Alabama. The second is a winery that just got funded that has not hired yet, because it literally just got funded a couple of days ago. And then the final thing is that we've started this job placement group that's going to place a lot of individuals in more the tech-based industry. So we can, these are kids with disabilities, but they're very good at coding. They're very good at, minutia. And so the business with that is going to be job placement, so to speak. And then with the government of Uganda, we're actually working hand in hand with them to make people with disabilities their business owners. So those are things more like coffee farms and things like that. And Singapore, we just launched that about a week ago. So we're incubating a couple of ideas based on that right now.
Gotcha. Well, this really is an exciting effort. You've used crowdfunding to fund some of your efforts. Tell us a little bit about what you've crowdfunded and how it went for you.
Yeah, so we use Indiegogo platform, and we crowdfunded this thing called Lifebox. So Lifebox is a free kit that we provide to families to help prevent wandering and wandering-related accidents in children, not only with autism, but also with Down syndrome. And we've managed to use crowdfunding to fund about 498 of these kits because we wanted to really test the effectiveness of each kit. And out of that 498, we're proud to say that we've managed to prevent 28 near drownings. So it's a remarkable effort. And included in each Lifebox is a Bluetooth tracking bracelet, a QR code shoe tag, some wireless door alarms for families who can't afford an alarm system in their house, and also a lot of information.
That's great. So how does it work? Give us an example of what happens if a child wanders off wearing these devices.
So basically with the Bluetooth tracking bracelet, it has a periphery, a range detector. So immediately you set the range as the parent. We normally recommend about 25, 30 feet. Immediately when the child's out of that range, it sends an alarm to the parent's smartphone. And on top of that, if the Bluetooth bracelet is immersed in water, it also sends out an alarm within 3 seconds. Children with autism and Down syndrome, for whatever reason, are very attracted to water. So drowning is the major risk. And then on top of that, of course, you have accidents on roads and things like that. So that's one layer. And then the second layer, obviously, is of course the wireless door alarms that sound when a child leaves a house. And then the QR shoe tags work by, if they are found by a first responder, they can scan that QR code, and that gives them the information for the child. The child can't communicate well. Yeah,
that's really cool. I mean, it's an amazing technology, and It's really making a difference. Can you give us an example of how it actually worked to prevent a near drowning?
Yeah, so the best example we have is a family out in Kentucky that lived in basically a trailer park, and they live about, I would say, 100 feet from the lake. And they have a daughter who actually a year ago, ended up drowning, and then they had to do CPR on. So we sent them a life box, and she wandered in the middle of the night out of the house. They had not installed the door alarm, but they did have the bracelet on her when she was sleeping. So when it went off, they were able to head towards the water because they felt that's where she would go. And she was about her waist high in water.
Wow.
Right. So it was this, and it's just nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, she easily could have drowned without your technology. That's right. Really kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So how much were you able to raise on? Do you remember how much you were able to raise?
Yeah, sorry, you broke up for a minute. Yeah, we raised about 12,000 on Indiegogo.
That's great. That's great. That's I've launched that program. Well, Julian, I want to just ask you a few personal questions, if I could. You obviously are becoming a role model to a lot of people in your community, and it's a big community of people that you're helping. Who do you look up to as a role model in your case?
I would probably say my dad. My dad, I was born in Malaysia, and my dad was a geography teacher in Malaysia, and he really showed me that you could definitely have an impact on someone's life. You did not have to have a lot of money. You just had to have the desire to help someone. And I would say, yeah, my dad. Yeah.
That's a great role model. Now, I think we have a sense of why you care about autism because of your son, but that doesn't quite help us understand why you care about other kids with autism. You could be doing this, you could be doing what you can for your son without sort of changing the world. What brings you to actually go beyond that?
I think the honest answer is the fact that this is my way of really saying, yes, we've been blessed with resources to help Abram. But there are so many other kids out there that their parents are trying their darndest. They work 2 or 3 jobs because autism is expensive. It's, the average cost is $6,000 to $8,000 a month out of pocket for therapy. And if, we were given Abram for a reason, and if we are not able to affect change in the lives of others, what are we really here for? We are kind of entrusted with our time in this world, and we need to leave this world, I believe, a better place than when we came in it. And if you're not doing that, then, yeah, there's not much. Yeah.
I hear you. Well, Julian, I wonder if you would share with us an impact hack, a tip, a practice that we can adopt that would help us do more good in the world. What do you think?
I think that the primary thing when you're talking about the nonprofit sector is always let your impact drive your mission. I think, a lot of people do amazing things in the nonprofit sector. They come up with great ideas, but then what really, causes them some harm, I guess, for lack of a better word, is the fact that then they start to think how we can fund it. And I think the key is that starts to drive your mission, and then pretty soon the impact is forgotten because you're always looking for revenue. So best advice I can say in terms of a hack is let your impact drive your mission, because when your impact drives your mission, you're not only helping people, but you're empowering them. It's the very analogy that you say, you can give someone a fish, but if you teach them to fish, you change their lives forever. And that's what I think, we've been able to do in our short time with KultureCity.
Yeah, that's great. Well, before you go, please, Julian, tell us how people can learn more about KultureCity and engage with you.
Yeah, definitely. So please look us up on our website. It's www.culture with a K, so KultureCity.org. Look us up on Instagram, it's KultureCity. On Twitter, we are KultureC. and on Facebook, just KultureCity. We'd love to connect with you, and you can learn definitely more about us that way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Julian, again, we thank you for your time today and wish you every success in the great work you're doing, and ask you to pass along our regards to your son as well.
Will do. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All righty. Let's do some good.